Our story begins over 2,000 years ago, in the rugged hills and sun-baked valleys of Judea, a small but significant province of the vast Roman Empire. This land, rich in history and tradition, was a crossroads of cultures, beliefs, and empires, a place where the hopes and struggles of the Jewish people played out under the watchful eyes of Roman governors. In this setting, a Jewish preacher from the humble town of Nazareth emerged. His name was Jesus. He began teaching a message that would not only challenge the world of his time, but would echo through the centuries, shaping the course of human history. Jesus spoke of a God whose love knew no boundaries, a God of compassion, mercy, and forgiveness. He reached out to those society had forgotten, the poor, the sick, the outcast, and the sinners. His words offered hope to the hopeless and dignity to the downtrodden. Through simple yet profound parables, Jesus taught lessons about kindness, humility, and faith. His teachings attracted a devoted group of followers, known as the disciples. They believed he was the long-awaited Messiah, the one foretold by ancient prophets who would bring salvation to their people. But not everyone welcomed his message. The religious authorities saw his growing influence as a threat to their power and traditions. The Roman rulers, wary of any disturbance, viewed him with suspicion. Tensions mounted as Jesus continued to challenge the status quo, calling for justice, mercy, and a new way of living. During the festival of Passover in Jerusalem, a time when the city swelled with pilgrims, Jesus was arrested under the cover of night. He was accused of blasphemy by the religious leaders and charged with sedition by the Romans. The sentence was death by crucifixion, a punishment reserved for the most serious offenders. His followers watched in shock and despair as their teacher and friend was executed in the most brutal way imaginable. For them, it seemed as if all hope was lost, and the movement they had believed in was over before it had truly begun. Yet, just 3 days later, something extraordinary happened. The disciples claimed to have seen Jesus alive again, risen from the dead. They found his tomb empty at sunrise, and their grief turned to astonishment and joy. This event, which they called the resurrection, became the turning point of their faith. The resurrection transformed their fear into unshakable conviction. They believed that Jesus had conquered death itself, proving that his message was true, and that he was indeed the Son of God. The resurrection became the cornerstone of their faith, giving them a new sense of purpose and a mission that extended far beyond their own lives. Inspired and emboldened, the disciples felt compelled to share this incredible news, not just with their fellow Jews, but with people of every nation, language, and background. They believed that the message of Jesus was meant for the entire world. What began as a small, fragile movement, meeting quietly in homes and marketplaces, was now a spark that would ignite a global faith. Despite persecution and hardship, they gathered together, prayed, and encouraged one another, holding fast to the hope that Jesus had given them. The message was no longer just about a wise teacher or a moral leader. It was about a divine figure who offered hope beyond death, forgiveness for all, and a new way of life rooted in love and faith. The disciples, once scattered and afraid, became bold messengers. They traveled from town to town, city to city, proclaiming the good news of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Their conviction and courage would drive them to spread Jesus' teachings far beyond the borders of Judea, across the Roman Empire, and eventually to the farthest corners of the known world. The story of Jesus was just beginning. His followers would write down his teachings, share his story, and build communities of faith that would endure for generations. His life, death, and resurrection would become the foundation of Christianity, a faith that would inspire millions and shape the course of history. Against all odds, the movement survived. It grew steadily, drawing people from every walk of life, rich and poor, men and women, slaves and free, united by a message of hope and redemption. The world would never be the same. The story of a man named Jesus, born in a small corner of the Roman Empire, would become a story for all humanity, one that continues to inspire, challenge, and transform lives to this day. After Jesus' resurrection, his followers, led by Peter, began preaching openly in Jerusalem. The city, bustling with travelers and traders, became the first stage for this new and radical message. Peter, once a fisherman, now spoke with boldness, sharing stories of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection to anyone who would listen. They formed a close-knit community, sharing everything and dedicating themselves to this new faith, the birth of the church. These early Christians gathered in homes, breaking bread together, praying, and supporting one another through hardship. Their unity and generosity set them apart from the rest of Jerusalem, drawing curiosity and sometimes suspicion. Persecution was fierce, but their numbers grew. Roman authorities and local leaders saw them as a threat, forcing many believers to meet in secret. Despite the danger, the movement's message of hope and salvation attracted more followers each day. The movement might have stayed small if not for Saul of Tarsus, later known as Paul. Saul was a zealous opponent of the early Christians, determined to stamp out the new faith. Once a persecutor, Paul's vision of the risen Jesus transformed him into Christianity's greatest missionary. This dramatic encounter changed the course of his life, filling him with a new purpose and passion. Paul believed Jesus' message was for everyone, not just Jews. He spoke to Greeks, Romans, and people from many backgrounds, insisting that faith in Christ was open to all, regardless of heritage or status. He traveled across the Roman Empire, founding churches and writing letters, epistles, that shaped Christian theology. These letters, filled with encouragement and guidance, were read aloud in gatherings and copied for distant communities, helping to unify believers across vast distances. Paul's work allowed Christianity to spread far beyond its Jewish roots. His journeys took him to cities like Corinth, Ephesus, and Rome, where new churches sprang up and the faith took root in diverse cultures. Other apostles also journeyed far. Thomas to India, Mark to Egypt, Peter to Rome. Each carried the message of Jesus to distant lands, adapting their teachings to new languages and customs. These missionaries faced hardship and danger, but their conviction never wavered. They endured shipwrecks, imprisonment, and even death, yet their faith inspired others to join the movement. They planted the seeds of faith in cities and villages across the empire. In marketplaces, homes, and public squares, they shared stories of Jesus, baptizing new believers and forming new communities. Their courage and persistence turned a small sect into a growing movement. The early Christians' willingness to face adversity inspired others, and soon, gatherings of believers could be found in every corner of the empire. The early church was built on their sacrifice and belief in universal salvation. Martyrs who gave their lives for their faith became symbols of hope and strength, and their stories were told and retold for generations. Christianity was no longer confined to Judea, it was becoming a faith for the world. From the crowded streets of Jerusalem to the distant cities of the empire, the message of Jesus was spreading rapidly. The groundwork for a global religion was laid. The apostles' journeys, sacrifices, and teachings set the stage for Christianity to become one of the world's most influential faiths, reaching people of every nation and background. In the decades after Jesus' death, his story was shared orally among followers. As eyewitnesses passed away, communities began writing down these accounts to preserve the message. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, offered unique perspectives on Jesus' life and teachings. Paul's letters, or epistles, addressed practical and theological issues, forming the first Christian theology. Other writings, like Acts and Revelation, were also valued. For centuries, different communities used different collections of texts. Church leaders debated which writings were truly authoritative. By the 4th century, consensus formed around the 27 books of the New Testament, combined with the Hebrew Scriptures. The Christian Bible became the foundation of a global faith. For 3 centuries, Christianity grew quietly in the shadows, its followers often forced to meet in secret, hiding from the watchful eyes of Roman authorities. Persecution was a constant threat, and many early Christians risked their lives simply to worship together or share their faith. Yet, despite the dangers, Christianity's message of hope, compassion, and equality resonated deeply. It attracted people from all walks of life: slaves, merchants, soldiers, and even some members of the Roman elite, offering a sense of belonging and purpose in a vast, often impersonal empire. Everything changed dramatically with Emperor Constantine. According to legend, before a crucial battle, Constantine experienced a powerful vision: a cross in the sky, accompanied by the words, "In this sign, conquer." Inspired, he embraced Christianity, forever altering its fate. The Edict of Milan in 313 was a turning point. It granted religious tolerance throughout the empire, officially ending centuries of persecution and allowing Christians to worship openly for the first time. Constantine became a patron of the church, funding the construction of magnificent basilicas and granting special privileges to Christian clergy, elevating their status in Roman society. He saw Christianity not just as a personal faith, but as a powerful unifying force that could help bring stability and cohesion to his fractured empire. The cross, once a symbol of shame and execution, was transformed into a symbol of imperial power and victory, carried proudly in parades and displayed on imperial regalia. Christianity moved rapidly from a persecuted minority to the favored faith of the empire, its ceremonies growing in scale and grandeur as it became woven into the fabric of Roman public life. The Church gained unprecedented influence, with its leaders now advising emperors and shaping imperial policy. Its future, once uncertain, was forever changed. Rome's embrace propelled Christianity onto the world stage, transforming it from a small sect into a global faith that would shape the course of history. The Age of Martyrs gave way to the Age of Empire as Christianity and Rome became forever intertwined. After Constantine, Christianity and the Roman Empire became deeply intertwined. Emperors supported the Church with wealth and power. Bishops gained political influence. Pagan temples fell into disuse as grand churches rose. In 380 AD, Emperor Theodosius made Nicene Christianity the official state religion. All other faiths were outlawed. State power enforced religious uniformity. Pagan rituals were banned, and conversion became a social necessity. The Church became a wealthy, powerful institution, shaping politics and society. Christianity's dominance was secured, even as the empire itself began to crumble. The faith was now embedded in the very fabric of society. This fusion of church and state would define Western civilization for centuries. Early Christianity was marked by fierce internal debates about Jesus' nature. The Arian controversy questioned whether Jesus was fully divine or a created being. Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea in 325 to resolve the crisis. The council rejected Arianism and produced the Nicene Creed, declaring Jesus fully divine. The creed became the benchmark of Christian orthodoxy. Ecumenical councils set the model for resolving disputes. The Church was forging unity and clarity, building a foundation for a world religion. As the Roman Empire split, so did the Christian Church. The Pope in Rome claimed authority over all Christians, but Eastern bishops disagreed. Cultural and theological differences deepened. Language, rituals, and the filioque clause in the creed. In 1054, mutual excommunications formalized the split. The Great Schism. The Western Church became Roman Catholic. The Eastern Church became Eastern Orthodox. The division created two powerful branches, each shaping history in its own way. The split has lasted nearly 1,000 years. Christianity was now a faith with two distinct centers of power. After Rome's fall, Christianity endured and expanded. Missionaries converted kings and peoples across Europe, blending faith with local customs. Clovis's baptism forged an alliance between the Franks and the papacy, shaping Europe's future. In the East, missionaries like Cyril and Methodius brought Christianity to the Slavs, creating the Cyrillic alphabet. The faith spread to Ethiopia, Egypt, and beyond, adapting to new cultures. Christianity proved resilient and adaptable, thriving in diverse societies. The seeds planted by missionaries would shape continents. In the second millennium, Christianity's expansion took new forms. The Crusades, launched by the Pope, aimed to reclaim the Holy Land, deepening divides with Muslims and Eastern Christians. Meanwhile, missionaries reached as far as China and India, establishing distant communities. In Europe, the last pagan regions converted, sometimes by force. By the 14th century, Christianity dominated Europe. The faith had survived persecution, transformed empires, and crossed continents. By the dawn of the modern era, it was the world's largest religion. The journey from a small group in Judea to a global faith was complete.